My name's Sam, and this is my channel. Do 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 do. Today we'll be discussing The Westing Game and why it's such a brilliant piece of children's literature. The Westing Game was a story written by Ellen Raskin and published in 1978. The general story is about 12 heirs who are invited to the will reading of a very famous businessman named Sam Westing, who forces them all into a game of whodunit to find his murderer and collect his fortune as prize money. However, there's a lot more at play in the Westing Game, and the further you read, the further down the rabbit hole you go until you're asking yourself, who really was Sam Westing? I read this book back in middle school, and I remember being enthralled with it, so I decided to give it a reread to see if I was still as entranced by this book as I was when I was a kid, and it turns out I am. So I wanted to break down what exactly makes The Westing Game such a brilliant and innovative book. The book begins with this statement. The sun sets in the west. Just about everybody knows that. But Sunset Towers faced east. Strange. Sunset Towers faced east and had no towers. This glittery, glassy apartment house stood alone on the Lake Michigan shore, 5 stories high. 5 empty stories high. Then one day, it happened to be the 4th of July, a most uncommon-looking delivery boy rode around town, slipping letters under the doors of the chosen tenants-to-be. The letters were signed Barney Northrup. The delivery boy was 62 years old, and there was no such person as Barney Northrup. Right out of the gate, Raskin hits you with a lot of feelings and questions. There is a rhythmic Dr. Seuss-like style to the way the opening is written that acts as a flag, letting you know that you've come across some useful information. Why does Sunset Towers face east? Why is 4th of July significant when it could have been any date? And who or what the hell is Barney Northrup? We're soon introduced to the characters apartment by apartment, and this is when the beauty and cleverness of Raskin's writing kicks in. As readers, we get to know a lot about the characters in a short amount of time, not through description, but through action. One of the first couples to enter this brand new apartment building was Jake and Grace Wexler, and Raskin chooses these key moments to highlight Grace's thoughts. By including lines such as, "A lake view. Just wait until those so-called friends of hers with their classy houses see this place. The furniture would have to be reupholstered. No, she'd buy new furniture. Beige velvet. And she'd have stationery made. Blue with a deckled edge. Her name and fancy address in swirling type across the top. Grace Windsor Wexler. Sunset Towers on the lakeshore." We can already tell how important class and appearance are to her, and how this is an indicator to the troubles she'll face later on in the story. This is done for each person, and we learn things about their personalities and past by glimpsing thoughts and actions that have an otherwise deeper implication, such as Madame Hu's yearning for China and the emotional power struggle that creates between her and her husband James, or the internal ethical issues she begins facing within herself. Raskin emphasizes these choices by having multiple points of view throughout her book. We get a slice of life from each character to really get into their head. Not only does this weave a web of interconnectedness through the story, but it sets up great pacing and humor. It's like the opposite of pulling a prank where you don't get to see the reaction to the prank. You get to see the build-up, and then you also get to see the foot drop from the perspective of the other person. These tactics allow Raskin to hide plot twists and clues in plain sight without ever having them picked up on in such a fun and mischievous way. The Westing Game is also very innovative in its use of character development and closure. Everything in this book is connected, and every character serves a very specific purpose for the story. When the games begin, the heirs are all sorted into pairs, and at first glance it seems like they're all sorted into a random assortment. However, the further you read, the more you realize Sam Westing has set up these couples as a mutually beneficial relationship, taking in everyone's needs into consideration. One of the best ways Raskin displays this is through the pairing of Denton Deere and Chris Theodorakis. Denton Deere is a pompous 25-year-old medical intern who goes around self-diagnosing everybody, even though he's not exactly sure what he's talking about. Chris is the disabled teenage son of two coffee shop owners. He likes to watch birds and make up stories with his brother. He actually parallels some of Raskin's own struggles, as she had a connective tissue disorder similar to the disability that she gives Chris in the book. Throughout the book, Chris is babied or cast aside because a lot of people equate his disability with a lack of intelligence. However, he's one of the very few people in the game to be observant enough to catch some of the clues that Sam Westing is hiding right in plain sight. At the first meeting of the heirs, when Denton is paired with Chris, he actually is one of the people that treats Chris the worst, acting as if Sam Westing had given him some kind of charity case. Eventually, Denton shames himself into being a better person and does reach out to help Chris with his disability. However, there are two important factors to keep in mind here. 1. The offer was not made out of obligation or pity. Denton developed real feelings of friendship towards Chris and was not only extending out of the goodness of his heart in a genuine, sincere way, but also out of the respect of the medical field, and that he as a doctor should help those who are suffering no matter what the cost. And 2. None of the emotional labor was ever put on Chris for Denton to be a better person. Denton had a decent amount of character development and learned on his own that he should never have disrespected Chris in such a way and that it was wrong of him to do so. It's refreshing to see the realities of what the disabled community goes through without actually patronizing said disabled character, even if the rest of the characters in the story do. It was never Chris's problem to be anything than his authentic self, and I really love Raskin for it. Even though the Westing game is written for a middle grade demographic, it's really a book that anybody can enjoy. It's a true murder mystery that, while not being overly gory, doesn't pander to an audience either. The book doesn't treat its reader as a child, and in doing so, sparks a respect and enthusiasm that resonates through generations. There are so many intricately woven parts of the story that while even being completely in the dark, you still have some semblance of what's going on. The mystery within a mystery, the tongue-in-cheek humor, the visual clues. I've picked up this book so many years later because it struck a chord with me then, and rereading as an adult, picking up on all the nuances and details in this story, I've only fallen in love with it that much more. All in all, I think The Westing Game is a very sharp and ingenious book that doesn't get as much credit or recognition as it deserves. So whether you're 9 or 92, I recommend picking up a copy and seeing if you can solve The Westing Game. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week, and have a good night.